Hey guys, Bubba here at the Bubbanews. All in one word, all in one news. How are you guys doing tonight? It is now June 18th. Hard to believe. It is already Wednesday this week. Hump Day is here. And we're going to talk a lot about Israel and Iran. You know what? I even have unsaved buddies that are texting me and they're asking me, what's the latest on this Israel and Iran war? You know, what's going on? And I start texting them back and I start sharing with them that now we're getting very prophetic. And that's when they usually don't respond back. But that being said, we are getting to some very prophetic times coming up, especially with Jeremiah 49 and Elam. They're of Persia. They're of Iran. And we're going to actually, if we have enough time, we'll get to some slides at the very end, talk about these prophecies coming up. But yeah, let's just get right to it before we get to today's Bible verse, because, this came out last night after we did the video. But the question is Israel in trouble? U.S. officials are reporting to the Wall Street Journal that Israel's stock of Arrow anti-ballistic missiles is running low. So Israel's going to have trouble coping with the prolonged fighting without help from the United States. And the estimate is that Israel will only be able to defend itself against the Iranian ballistic missile attacks for about 10 to 12 more days without getting some massive assistance from the U.S. So the source adds that as early as later this week, even, Israel's defense systems may not be able to intercept as many rockets and may only be able to intercept a smaller portion of the missiles due to the need to ration their defensive ammunition. Israel will have to choose between what they want to intercept, said the source who spoke on condition of anonymity. The system is already overwhelmed, they said. And when push comes to shove, Israel will have to protect its air defense infrastructure and their military bases, as these will eventually take priority over the civilian populations, unfortunately. Because Israel has to keep up the attack to prevent more rockets and missiles from coming in and hurting their citizens. So it's going to get really squirrely. But we're going to get to today's verse here. Jeremiah 29, verse 13. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Guys, if you haven't sought out the Lord Jesus Christ, now is the time, because even dig into Jeremiah, or even read Jeremiah 29. If you've never read the Bible before, just begin somewhere. Jeremiah 29 is really cool. The whole book of Jeremiah is really neat. But today began the 12th wave of the operation of True Promise 3. This morning, and it was launched with the launch of a two-stage long-range super heavy Iranian Sajil missiles earlier today. And the re-entry speed into the atmosphere is approximately Mach 12 to Mach 14. That's up to 10,000 miles an hour. And the range is up to 2,000 to 2,500 kilometers, capable of striking all of Israel, and could even reach some areas of Eastern Europe there. We're going to watch a video here, but these missiles exhibit unusual patterns with trails resembling ICBMs as they were visible exiting the Earth's atmosphere. And we're going to show that video here in a second, but here comes the first one. Those things are nasty, but here's what they saw today with the launch of the hypersonic ballistic missile there from Iran. When it starts piercing that upper atmosphere, that's when it starts fanning out like that. Really pretty, but very, very deadly. This is how they put up all those really weird things in the sky that people have been reporting over Jordan the past couple days and whatnot, with these hypersonic ballistic missiles going into the endo and the exo atmosphere. Really wild. But meanwhile today, you know what? Trump met with the U.S. CENTCOM commander, Kurilla, over Iran. And the CENTCOM commander, Michael Kurilla, met with President Trump and presented military options regarding Iran. So Kurilla supports the strike and is deeply familiar with both American and Israeli operational plans and capabilities. And he served as the CENTCOM commander for years. Israel prefers to act with Kirilla while he's still in his position. So if a strike happens, Kirilla is expected to lead it. Trump listens to Kirilla and he respects him. And several sources say that Trump would have preferred an Iranian agreement, but then Trump called for an unconditional surrender. But since that's not on the table, the working assumption is that Trump will order a strike. Well, speaking of strikes, who's ready for the GBU-57A? The USA bunker buster bombs will be used, no doubt, in the days to come.
Capabilities of the GBU-57, also known as the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. It can penetrate over 60 meters into the ground, around 200 feet. To put that into perspective, this depth is comparable to the height of a 20-story building, depending on the floor heights. These examples demonstrate the significant advancements and differences in penetration levels among these specialized weapons. Let's put an average human here against this weapon, which is 20.5 feet long, giving it a streamlined, aerodynamic shape that is crucial for stability and precision. With a diameter of 31.5 inches and weighing an incredible 30,000 pounds, translating to approximately 14,000 kilograms, it utilizes its massive weight to generate the kinetic energy required for deep penetration. This heavy, compact design enables it to break through over 200 feet of reinforced concrete, making it one of the most effective bunker-busting munitions in the world.
Isn't that nuts? And that's the technology that we know about. They have other technology they plan on using. It is not a question of when. It's not a question of if anymore. It's a question of when. When's this going to take place? And these are a couple critical days coming up. But you know what? Israel, I believe, is going to break the bow of Elam. Jeremiah 49:35, behold, I will break the bow of Elam, the mainstay or the foremost of their might. Jeremiah 49 and Elam's military defeat there in the western one-third of Iran, the bow is broken. This means a military defeat. Elam will then be scattered. This is a national destabilization and a global humanitarian crisis that's going to unfold. Terror follows them, ongoing unrest and exile. Eventually a throne will be set in Elam, possibly foreign occupation is what this is saying, but the restoration does come in the last days, indicating future mercy. And the modern application with Elam, Iran, is Elam's ancient territory overlaps modern southwestern Iran there, including the Bushehr nuclear power plant, directly in ancient Elam, strategic military and energy centers. And yes, I believe it's fully going to be a pre-Gog-Magog war of Ezekiel 38 and 39, weakening Iran. And this is why Iran is mentioned as Persia in Ezekiel 38 verse 5, almost like in third place position, because they've been hit pretty hard. In Psalm 83, which I am a proponent of course, but suggests that Jeremiah 49 could be part of a broader pre-tribulational conflict where Israel ends up defeating their surrounding armies. And we read about that, where Israel takes care of their enemies on their left hand and on their right. Zechariah 12, 4-6. There in Ezekiel 28, verses 24 to 26. There's so many cool things going on. And the Bible's just coming so alive. But this is something else that they're talking about. And they're talking about loose nukes in Iran. And this is a scenario of loose nukes in Iran, quote unquote, that special forces from the United States Army, they've been training for this. Ground operations in Iran could be needed to secure the dangerous nuclear materials and verify that the program has been destructed, especially if the Iranian regime falls. So even if unique U.S. conventional strike capabilities, like the GBU-57 and stuff, are brought to the forefront of this battle, there could still be significant targeting challenges going forward. Because especially if the Iranians, they move to disperse the elements of their nuclear program. And if the Iranian government were to collapse and do so suddenly, then there would be further, they really want to get this done to ensure that the enriched uranium and other dangerous nuclear materials would then be secured. So could still be a lot of actors that play a role in this. But U.S. Special Operations Forces in particular have been actively training to respond to scenarios exactly like this for years. The USA is ready. But so is the Israeli Special Forces. I mean, this sounds like something right up Mossad's alley. You know what I mean? But this came out earlier today talking about how the Israeli Air Force carried out a major wave of airstrikes on 20 key Iranian facilities in Tehran today. Around 60 fighter jets participated in the operation, which targeted a range of sites tied to Iran's nuclear program's development and missile production programs. And according to the IDF, the strikes hit missile weapons manufacturing plants and centrifuge production facilities. Also, nuclear research and development centers that were intended to accelerate uranium enrichment for nuclear weapons. So the IDF military says the operation aimed to cripple Iran's ability to expand its nuclear capabilities and strike Israel with advanced weaponry. But you know what? Additional targets included factories producing raw materials and components for missile assembly, as well as facilities tied to the production of Iranian air defense systems. This was one of the most extensive Israeli air operations inside Iran to date. But even like the weapons manufacturing in Iran would build weapons to send to Hezbollah. This is what I'm talking about. This is a video that came out today. And they showcased this again. And it's really neat how they show the high-def inside graphics and whatnot that the IDF puts together to show exactly what they're going into and what they're doing. This part's pretty wild. They're building all this stuff to be able to send to their brothers in the hood, Hezbollah. Ooh, I know what those are. Those are ugly. Oh, man. Those spike type of missiles there that, oh, man. Yeah, but, well, you know, while the USA is getting ready to go to work on Iran, the UK foreign minister is heading to D.C. for urgent talks with senior Senator Marco Rubio. So Trump today held a second National Security Council meeting in the Situation Room. And Reuters said today that U.S. senators are going to receive a classified briefing on Iran early next week. This could even mean Sunday. According to an aide to the Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer, as military tensions between Iran and Israel continue to escalate. But this is what Trump said today. He said basically total, complete victory.
We're long beyond ceasefire. And I said, why do you say that? Why would you say ceasefire? It's a bad term to use. Because a ceasefire means like everything's going swimmingly, we'll take a little time off. It's not. We're not looking for a ceasefire. We're looking for a total, complete victory. Again, you know what the victory is. No nuclear weapon. We're long beyond ceasefire.
Yeah. So I think Trump's starting to change, but then around 5 p.m. this evening Eastern time, which was midnight in Israel, Iranian missiles were then launched once again towards Tel Aviv. Then a second wave came in targeting Jerusalem. And, you know, they said initially that a limited attack was inbound with only a few missiles fired. And that was what exactly happened. So there were fewer than 5 missiles launched. And I pose the question, is Iran really getting this weak in their missile launches? I mean, it appears so. You know, Trump told senior aides late today that he approved the attack plans for Iran, but he's holding off on giving the final order to see if Tehran will abandon its nuclear program. Well, that's not going to happen. So basically, Trump okays the U.S. attack on Iran, but the final order is still on hold for now. And Trump basically asked his military advisors whether its massive bunker busters would destroy the Fordo nuclear plant. Well, Trump was told at the Pentagon that it was certain that our technology would destroy the facility. The U.S. official said that the Israelis told the Trump administration that while they may not be able to reach deeply enough into the ground and into the mountain with their bombs, they may have to do it with humans, aka boots on the ground. And tonight it's just been way too quiet because Iran isn't launching missiles on Israel. Israel isn't doing some big sortie over Iran. Something's up. And actually now Israel is attacking Iran, and we'll get to that in a second. But I'm going to start sharing this, I believe, from the Institute right there for the Study of War. And these were the attacks in the past 24 hours, basically, as of 5 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm going to try to list these on Telegram and bring them to you guys' attention as well. Just because, you know, just keep an eye on the Elam area of Iran. So, whoa, easy there, big boy. Where was we? Oh, my goodness. See what happens when I get so excited? All right, we went to the power and the bow of Elam. Let's keep going. Come on. You can do this. We can help. Come on. All right, we got Trump yakking. We got the rockets coming in. There's the final order. There we go. We showed that. We showed the map. Now let's go to this one. This one's really nuts. Because the Israeli strikes have driven Iranian forces to begin firing missiles from central Iran rather than western Iran. So the Israeli forces are going to, or actually, no, the Iranian forces, they're going to need to use their longer range missiles now. So instead of firing them from western Iran, they're going to have to fire them more centralized. But these longer range Iranian missiles, these are much more destructive. So by Iran moving their missiles back and launching the ballistic missiles from Esfahan, well, this is going to prevent Iran from being able to use numbers 1, 2, and 3 since they've moved back. Because this is going to prevent Iran from being able to use 3 of these type of ballistic missile types that Iran has previously used to attack Israel. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. These are the Iranian missiles that have been used so far. I mean, you've got the Hajj Qassam up there at the top. You've got the Khyber down below. Those top two, those aren't going to be able to be used anymore because they've moved too far inward inside of Iran. These last two, the Ghadir family and the Imad family, they are still in play. Oh, man, especially their Fatah 2 and 3 missiles that are coming into play with their glide technology. Ay. But the IDF did begin a new wave of attacks on Tehran tonight and other areas in Iran. But unfortunately, the Iranian regime has shut down the internet, so it's hard to get footage. And this is just a crazy reality that's going on right now. But you know what? Let's say that Iran has a nuclear warhead. Let's just give them, let's just say that they do. Let's say that Iran has a nuclear warhead and that Iran tries to launch it. What would happen? What would happen if Israel struck this missile getting ready to launch in Elam, in western Iran? What would it look like? Well, if Israel were to strike a nuclear warhead in western Iran getting ready to be launched, the consequences would be catastrophic with a severe humanitarian crisis unfolding as a direct result. I'm just going to read this to you because I did some research into this. Check this out. The immediate effects of the strike would be a massive explosion. First of all, a successful strike on a nuclear warhead would trigger a devastating explosion, depending on the size and design of the warhead. But, nuclear warheads are normally kept in secure, reinforced facilities. But if detonated, the blast would destroy everything in the surrounding area, including all the civilian infrastructure and population centers in western Iran. And the radiation contamination, the explosion will release a large amount of radioactive material into the environment. The fallout would contaminate the air, the water, the soil, and this would pose immediate and long-term health risks not only to Iran, but potentially to the neighboring countries, depending on the wind patterns. And we've talked about this, how it's supposed to move across the Persian Gulf into Qatar, into the United Arab Emirates, into Bahrain. There's going to be a lot of casualties. And the initial blast, combined with the radiation exposure, well, this would likely kill thousands of people, both military personnel and civilians, while injuring many more. And the scale of destruction would depend on the warhead size and the density of the population nearby. And the humanitarian crisis would be insane because there would be a mass displacement of people. The destruction and radioactive contamination would force millions of people to flee their homes, creating a refugee crisis. Iran would struggle to provide shelter, food, and medical care for these displaced populations. And neighboring countries could also face an influx of these refugees, overwhelming their resources. This would be a health emergency. And radiation exposure would lead to widespread health issues, including radiation sickness, cancer, and genetic mutations in future generations. Even Iran's healthcare system, it's already strained. It would be unable to handle the surge of patients needing specialized treatment for radiation-related illnesses. And this would worsen the crisis even more. The explosion and fallout would devastate the local environment, polluting all the water sources and the agricultural land. This would cause food shortages and long-term ecological damage, making it harder for survivors to even sustain themselves. And the broader consequences? Well, this would be a definite escalation to war because Iran would most certainly retaliate and would lead to a full-scale war with Israel. This could also involve Iran's regional allies, such as Hezbollah, and might draw in other nations, which would further destabilize the region. I mean, the international reaction alone, the global community would condemn Israel, especially given the civilian toll and environmental damage. I mean, even Iran's allies like Russia or China could step in with support, and this could escalate this conflict even further. So yes, a humanitarian crisis would definitely and undoubtedly unfold if Israel stuck a nuclear warhead in western Iran. The consequences would be felt not just in Iran, but across the region and beyond. And the Bible tells us there in Jeremiah 49:36 that the people will be dispersed globally. But here's what's going on too, because the IDF assessed that Iran has recently used fewer missiles to attack Israel because it's having difficulty coordinating large attacks on Israel. Not because Iran is conserving them per se, but because Israel keeps taking out their ballistic missile launchers. So the Iranian missile barrages have decreased in size since the beginning of the Israel-Iran conflict on June 12th. From approximately 40 missiles per barrage to only a handful today. So this assessment is consistent with the IDF's recent statements that it's destroyed about half of Iran's ballistic missile launchers now. So Iranian leaders are likely to only choose to expend the remaining missile stockpile if they view that the current conflict with Israel is an existential threat. And actually, I believe Iran's saving a lot of their stuff for when the United States joins in. But I posted this right at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight, and I said, oh boy, because Israel just issued an evacuation warning in order for the Arak heavy water nuclear reactor in Iran. This produces the plutonium needed for Iran's nuclear program. Arak is a heavy water reactor, and it's a plutonium source. Iran disabled it under the 2015 JCPOA deal, but could restart it. But bombing it risks radiation contamination, big time. So I said Arak will soon become a bunch of broken rock. But you know what? Iran is saving its most advanced missiles and weaponry for the big battle. Because it's inevitable that the coalition forces will enter the war and the conflict. The United States is getting ready to join. The UK is getting ready to join. France is getting ready to join. You know, and this came out from Bloomberg because they said that senior U.S. officials are preparing for a possible strike on Iran, with some sources indicating it could come soon as this weekend. And the U.S. is assembling the necessary infrastructure by planning with all the logistics and the command systems to support this operation. This is going to be a big operation too. Trump has not made a final decision. This is what Trump said. He said, I may do it, I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. Yeah, that's probably the understatement of the year. Because no one knows what Trump's going to do. Where are we? Oh, we're at the end of this, but don't leave yet, because I figured since we still have a few minutes, let's go to, this is something, and I'm just going to throw this up here. Oh, yeah, it's my late dad. He passed away back there. This was, my late dad passed away last year, April 26, 2024. But you know what? I'm going to see him soon in glory. I can't wait. Anyway, because we're all going to meet the Lord in the air. I mean, we're all going to meet our loved ones in the air. 1 Thessalonians 4, 16 and 17. They go before us, and we're going to meet them there. This is what I wanted to find down here. I've got all these screenshots from Psalm 83 war, Ezekiel 38:39, Ezekiel 28, Isaiah 17, Damascus, Zechariah 12. That one's big. But I figured, you know what? Let's go over the Iran, Jeremiah 49 screenshots, because I know people love screenshots. It helps me learn. Hopefully it'll help you guys learn too. But you know, this just helps us all, I think, put the puzzle pieces together so we know what's coming. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, let's dig in. But this is Iran's double trouble in the latter years, because Iran is in dual end time prophecies. We've got the Persia prophecy of eastern 2/3 of Iran there in Ezekiel 38 verse 5. But we also have the Elam prophecy, which is coming up right now, it sure appears. Jeremiah 49, verses 34 to 39. And as you can see down there, we're all watching Elam. They're the ancient Elamites. You know what? Even Ezekiel, this is so wild, right? I'm going back here because Persia is mentioned in the Gog and Magog war. In the 52 verses there of Ezekiel 38 and 39. In Ezekiel 38 verse 5, Persia is mentioned. But you know what? Ezekiel knows about Elam, but he didn't mention it. Jeremiah knows about Elam. That's why he mentioned it. But my point is, Ezekiel knew about Elam because he mentioned it there in Ezekiel 32, verse 24. So he knows all about the Elamites, but he didn't mention that in Ezekiel 38:5 for the Gog of Magog. These areas here, Natanz, Isfahan, Shiraz, Bushehr, even the Arak, that's all in Elam territory, and that's what's getting ready to be hit. But you know what? We read this in Jeremiah 49, verse 37, that Iran will be dismayed before her enemies. And the enemies are the Gulf Cooperation Council there, of Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates. You know, all those countries are against Iran. But so is the United States, Israel. The enemies, plural. You know, because we've got Isfahan. That's Iran's largest nuclear research facility. Natanz, Iran's primary enrichment facility. Bushehr, one of their nuclear reactors down there, because they're building number 2 and number 3. And Shiraz is Iran's special weapons and missile development facility. But they're also taking out Fordo, so that's coming up too. But you know what? The Iranian radiation, that's a big threat to the Gulf Cooperation Council. Those people right across the water. In the event of a radiation leak, clouds of radioactive material will drift to the GCC states in just 15 hours. While the radiation would affect only 10% of the Iranian population, in the GCC states, 40 to 100% of those populations will be affected. And what populations are those? We just saw it. It's right here. Bahrain, Qatar. You see where Bushehr is there at the top? Right underneath the Shiite Caliphate? This would come over across Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates. It would then flow into Oman. So this will get really nuts. That's why I just read that about the nuclear disaster that's coming. You know, let's do the summary of the Elam prophecy. Again, these are great for screenshots there of Jeremiah 49, verses 34 to 39. God is going to bring disaster upon them. Even God's fierce anger. God is going to destroy from there the king and the princes. Verse 39. So I believe something's coming up where a regime change is very possible in the days to come. And who knows? Elam might end up breaking off from Persia, Iran being their own entity once again. This will be wild to see how this this goes down, but God is going to break the bow of Elam at the foremost of their might, or at the best of their ability, like their nuclear weapons program or their hypersonic ballistic missiles. You know, and God's going to bring the four winds from the four quarters of heaven and going to scatter all these people, the Elamites. It's going to be a worldwide dispersion. And the Bible tells us there's not going to be one nation where the outcasts of Elam do not go. God is going to cause Elam to be dismayed before their enemies, verse 37, and before those who seek their lives. God is going to send the sword after them until he has consumed them. And right there, number 7, the send the sword, that's a military term usage in the Old Testament. God's going to use military might to destroy them. But keep in mind, the Bushehr nuclear power plant down there sits on where 3 tectonic plates converge. So that's still a strong possibility that a mega earthquake could go off as well. But it sure appears like God's going to send the sword, military, until he has consumed them. God is going to set his throne in Elam, verse 38. And then the latter days bring back the captives of Elam. So all this is still coming to play. You know, and even in the Ezekiel 38 war, the Gog of Magog invasion, there's no Elam being mentioned in this war. And again, Ezekiel talks about Elam in Ezekiel 32:24. But there is Persia. All these players are going to come in the final days as we get closer to these final days for the Gog and Magog war in the 52 verses there of Ezekiel 38 and 39, which is totally different than the Revelation 20 verses 7 through 10 Gog and Magog scenario. Different outcomes, they're different places where the battle takes place. You know, one is God takes care. Oh, yeah. It is a cool study, but there's so many differences between them. They're not the same. One's before, I believe, the 7-year tribulation, and one is after the 1,000-year millennial reign of Christ. It's a really neat study. And even the Ezekiel 38, where it mentions Persia in verse 5, in Jeremiah 49, verses 34 to 39, where it talks about Elam, they're not the same prophecies. One, they're different prophets. They're different geographical locations. Definitely different battlefields. And totally different defeats. Different enemies. Because Elam is Israel versus the enemies. Ezekiel omits Elam, but he knows all about Elam right there. Ezekiel 32, 24, and 25. And there's no promise of restored fortunes for Persia, the eastern two-thirds of Iran, but there is promise of restored fortunes for Elam, that western one-third that's going to be destroyed. And the Elam prophecy has not historically been fulfilled. And again, the prophecy is reserved for the latter days, Jeremiah 49, 39. That's the exact same wording of latter days that we read in Ezekiel 38, 39, Magog war. And Jeremiah mentions Babylon 141 times, and not once in this prophecy. And Babylon conquest of Elam was in 612 BC, 16 years prior to the issuance of this prophecy by Jeremiah in 596 BC. Elam needs no restoration. It talks about who are the returning captives. The Elamites reappear, even in the New Testament. Look at that, Acts 2:9. And when was the Lord fiercely angry with Elam historically? It hasn't happened. Who are the enemies of Elam when the Lord is fiercely angry? History doesn't tell us because it hasn't happened. It hasn't been fulfilled yet. Now, what nations did the Elamites disperse to 2,500 years ago? Never happened. It's still coming up. That's what I'm saying. These things are coming up, and it's going to get crazy town soon. But you know what? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Let's get back to where we were. But you know what? This whole thing with Israel and Iran, the Israel and Iran war, the latest on Israel and Iran, it's hard to keep up. Because every day, something comes out different. Something comes out new. And it has to do with Israel or it has to do with Iran. But we know that God's focus is on Israel in these end times and on his eternal city, Jerusalem. And God is going to make his name known throughout all the earth very soon. And these coming attacks are going to be one more way that we can show the world that the Bible is 100% true. And the prophecies found there within are getting ready to come to pass. Guys, it's getting ready to kick off and it's getting ready to get nutty, Professor. But right now, it's calm tonight. It feels like another pause. It feels like another pause in the birth pains. The contractions have subsided for a second. But make no mistake, they're coming back hard, and they're coming back strong, and they're coming back soon. You know who else is coming soon? The Lord Jesus Christ. And with that, I bid you adieu. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Thank you so much to the moderators. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for even popping in to watch this video. You guys are a lot of fun, and you guys have brought me so many blessings, and you guys encourage me. Thank you so much for your prayers. We're taking Mrs. Bubba back to the, what do we got here tomorrow? We're doing the next round of the physical therapy, so we'll keep going, and I ask for your continued prayers with that, and ask you for the continued prayers for me, just to stay focused for the Lord Jesus Christ, because we all want to finish strong, and we all want to see him very soon. And someday, very soon, we are going to see the Lord Jesus Christ. And people ask me all the time, when's the rapture? It's coming on a day that ends in the letter Y. And with that, I bid you adieu. Thank you so much for watching. Maranatha, guys. God bless, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night.